Hello you all, welcome back to my channel. This is Sheba. I'm on here to share with you all another spread that I did in my Canson journal that I purchased from Amazon. And I've been creating another spread for the last couple of weekends and sharing with you all what I've created. But before I get started with sharing with you all my spread, I hope that you're all having a wonderful weekend. Happy Sunday to you all. And also like to thank my new and existing subscribers for coming over to my channel and watching my videos. So thank you all so much for that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and share with you all what I use, and then I'll share with you all what I created. So I did use some distressed spritz and spice marmalade. I also used from Tim Holtz' new release that just came out, I think last week, if I'm not mistaken. He's got the texture paste twinkle. And so this is new. He also has the not the texture paste, but he also has the new snowflake mica. So I did purchase both of these from Cherry on Top, actually, because I got a discount. So yeah, but I did use the texture paste and twinkle. And it reminds me of the sparkle paste that he has as well. And then I used several distressed oxide inks and one just regular distressed ink. So I used distressed oxide and black soot, crackling campfire, carved pumpkin, peeled paint, gathered twigs, antique linen, and then just distressed ink and vintage photo. So those are all the inks that I used. And then that's not Tim Holtz related. I did use this stitch circle. Couldn't think what I was going to say. I did use a stitch circle scallop die that I've had in my stash forever. And then I also used, which is new by Scissors and Tim Holtz, this is a 3D texture phase large A5 embossing folder, which is called Cracked. And I'm loving these large size embossing folders because you can do so much more than you can just with just a regular standard size embossing folder. But I still love the standard size too, don't get me wrong, but the large ones I really have a lot of fun with, especially when I want to use this in my journal. Okay, and then the dies that I use, which is Scissors dies by Tim Holtz, I did use this Wicked die, and I just used the pumpkin here. I haven't played with this all yet, but I just used the pumpkin. And then I use this foliage wreath die, and I just use some of the foliage on here for my spread, since it's a fall themed spread that I created. And then this is called the Fresh Brew Sidekick side order die, and I just used the embossing folder. And then I've had this in my stash forever, you guys, several years. And this is the alphanumeric lore, cutout lore. And as you can see, the older version of the die packaging versus the new. So yeah, so this is the older version packaging. And like I said, I had this in my stash forever, and I just recently started playing with it. I wasn't a big Tim Holtz fan several years ago when I started crafting, but things change. It's a new time, and I just have a new vision of what I want to craft with. And so here we are. I'm loving mixed media. I'm loving Tim Holtz products. So yeah, so I use that. And then I also use the last item, which is and I've had this in my stash forever as well. Let me lift my camera up a little bit. Okay, and I also use this as the Tim Holtz Alterations Scissors Bigz die, and this is called Fresh Brewed, and this is what it looks like. Never played with it, you guys, until Friday night when I started, creating the spread. I started crafting Friday night while I was on FaceTime with a really good friend, and then I finished it yesterday morning, and that's all the crafting I did this weekend. I just didn't feel like crafting, didn't want to come in here, didn't want to do anything, and I didn't have any energy or no, like mojo, crafting mojo. I haven't lost it, I just didn't have anything. So I just like, you know what, I'm not gonna do no more crafting this weekend. This is what it is. And so me and my husband just watched the movie, and that was about it. So yeah, so those are all the items that I use for this spread. So let me go ahead and share with you all. And if you haven't seen this journal that I'm mentioning, or this is your first time coming up to my channel, this is what the Canson journal looks like. It's from Amazon. and it has Canson here at the bottom. It is a ring bound journal, and what I started doing now, because I've been getting like sprays and stuff on my other pages, which you really can't tell, but I don't like that. So I've been just taking a piece of paper towel and sticking it through the ring, and just kind of making sure that it's, you know, covering the other pages, so therefore when I'm using my sprays or whatnot, it doesn't interfere with the other pages that I've created on, or the pages that I haven't created on yet. So yeah, so this is the Canson journal. So let me just flip to the page. So here is my fall themed pumpkin latte spread. So it's pretty much black and orange. That's pretty much what it is. And I just added some greenery in there just to give it a little bit of different color. But I love the way this turned out. So first, what I did was, just to explain my process, I used carved pumpkin, distressed oxide, and I just kind of went around the edges here with that, so I knew I was going to put, you know, something on top, so I didn't have to do the whole page. So I just went around the edges, and then, once I did that, then I took some just black cardstock from my stash that I have already, because the cardstock that I use here is not Tim Holtz. It's just what I have in my stash. And then I use watercolor paper that I got from Amazon that I really like. And let me see. Yeah, I'm gonna show you the Amazon paper watercolor real quickly. One moment. So here, so I just ordered 2 more of these because I was almost out. Because I don't want to use like I know I can buy some watercolor cardstock Tim Holtz paper, but I just rather use something, you know, like this. So this is a watercolor book that I get from Amazon. It's got 20 sheets, and this is 9 by 12, and I just finished one that I've had in my stash for a long time, so I ordered 2 more just to have some backup. So that's the watercolor cardstock that I use. So I just got some more. This is just some watercolor cardstock from that one that I just showed you. And so I distressed it with the carved pumpkin. Get your mind right, Sheba, think. I distressed it with the carved pumpkin first. And then once I distressed it with the carved pumpkin ink, then I ran it through the embossing folder from Fresh Brewed's sidekick die, or sidekick, die and embossing folder set. I ran it through 3 times. And so I only just cut off very little at the bottom. So I still got my full images. And once I ran it through, the carved pumpkin was a little bit too bright, so I went in with the crackling campfire, and I just kind of hid it in different areas. I don't know if you can tell, just to give it some more darkness instead of the brightness that it had. So that's what I did. And then after I got, you know, what I wanted, then I went on top with some distressed spritz and marmalade and did some spritzing to give it some shine. So that's what you see there in the background. And then once I did that part of it and I was satisfied, then I just started laying my images down. So I used black cardstock from my stash, and I cut out the pumpkin latte. So I just put pumpkin here, latte here. And I love the size of these alphanumeric lowercase dies. I love the size of them. So that's what I did there. And then I did some smushing on my desk. So I just put down some bundle sage and a little bit of gathered twigs. And I just did some ink smushing with, you know, the watercolor cardstock to get the color I wanted. But of course I did more of the bundle sage because I wanted more green leaves there. But just put a little bit of hint of brown in there. So that's how I did those leaves. And then these fall leaves right here, I did more of crackling campfire, and then a little bit of the gathered twig on here. So that's why it kind of gave me that like orangey brown color leaves here, which is fall. And then I did these leaves here the same. So I wanted different leaves from that foliage wreath die set. I didn't want them all to be the same. So that's why I kind of mixed the leaves up a little bit. So you got one up, one down here, and then you got the two and two in the corner, and then you got 2 at the bottom of the cup. And I did use the gathered twigs for the stem of these leaves too. So that's what I did there, if you can see. And then getting on to the main image of the spread is this fresh brewed coffee cup or a cocoa cup or whatever you want to call it. In this instance, it's a pumpkin latte. So I did cut out my images with the watercolor cardstock, And then once I cut it out, I just distressed this with distressed oxide and antique linen, because that's the color I want the cup to be. Since we got kind of dark and fall, I want the cup to be light. So I did antique linen, then I distressed the edges with vintage photo. And then after I did that, then I distressed the top and the coffee sleeve with vintage photo. And then I just took this on my scoreboard and scored the coffee sleeve just to give it some more dimension or texture, if you can see. And then here is the pumpkin that I cut out. Like I said, I cut off the swirly part of the pumpkin because that was just a little bit too much for me. So I cut that off. And so then I distressed the edges with, I did the carved pumpkin, distressed oxide, and a little bit of the crackling campfire for the pumpkin. And then I distressed it with the vintage photo. And then the stem was just vintage photo. And then I took some of that texture paste and twinkle, and I just dipped my finger in there and just kind of dipped it on here over the pumpkin, just to give that some texture as well and some twinkle. And I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but that's what I did. And that is my image, you guys. This is my spread. So yeah, and then I just distressed the edges, like I said, with black soot. And then I also distressed the actual, you know, mixed media paper in the journal with the black soot. So yeah, so that is my fall pumpkin latte spread that I want to share with you all. So I hope that you all enjoyed this share of me creating in my Canson journal. I do want to thank you all so much for watching. You all have yourself a great rest of your weekend. Have a great week ahead, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye-bye.